Hi chess friends, this is King's Executor covering round 9 of the Tata Steel tournament 2013 in Wijk. And the clear game of the day is again a game of Magnus Carlsen's. And we're going to look at this game from his perspective, because he had the black pieces. With the white pieces we have Yifan Hou, the only female player in Group A of the Tata Steel tournament in 2013, and she had a interesting surprise for him. In this position, not the Spanish was employed, but Carlsen's prepared surprise weapon for his white piece play in round 6, covered in the game of the day video from round 6, off beating it's called, on my channel. And Yifan Hou employed this herself against him, maybe trying to confuse him what she might have prepared against him. But clearly with this Ponziani opening, Magnus Carlsen is clearly not the guy who only prepares for his side. He's not only preparing what his opponent might play and what the traps in his opening are and what the blunders might be, but he also searches for the best that black can play against this. So when I prepare an opening, I prepare the forcing lines and the lines which are not forcing, in terms of how to set up my position the best. But a player of Magnus Carlsen's caliber, being a professional and the very best, he's going to prepare every surprising opening surely in way more detail. So I'm not sure if this approach of Yifan Hou's is very good. Okay, I think this might be a resignation sign almost now, almost before the game really started, because she knows she's rated 200 points lower than Magnus Carlsen, and if she's going to try to debate a highly analyzed standard opening, then she's going to be smashed anyway. So why not try to confuse him with c3 here with the Ponziani opening? Knight f6, which was Magnus Carlsen's opponent's choice as well when he played c3 himself in this position, and d4, e takes d4, e5 kicking the knight, knight d4, bishop c4. Really, this approach by black and white really resembles the Alekhine. So bishop back to b3 and d5, liberating black's position. C takes d4 to have a strong center with connected central pawns. Bishop g4. You wanna develop this bishop really early on in the game. Okay, if h3 would be played next move, say we play bishop e7 and h3 by white, then still we would have time for bishop f5, but actually looking at it now, knight h4 would put this move into question, and the bishop would probably have to retreat, possibly. So it's not that easy. This is the reason why the bishop is moved early on here. Bishop e3, and f6. Really a move which almost no one would play without preparation, because it's looking kind of weakening, but it's really a very logical approach. You have the strong white center. It cannot stay there for long, or white will have a long-term advantage. And you have your bishop here. So this bishop doesn't have only the function to pin this knight, but after f6 to cover the light squares. So this weakness doesn't look that weakening if you're looking closer at this position. Castles is the best move probably. And now queen to d7, preparing long castling. h3, bishop h5. As I said, not allowing any tricks on the light squares. e6, a gambit, but surely not a gambit in the sense of an opening gambit, which you can take or decide probably not to take. This is a pawn you surely shouldn't take, because that would be really a bad approach here. In this position, knight g5 is a move, and if we take this, then we have check, g6, queen takes. And I'm not sure that black would have any reason to go into this. In this position, sorry, let's go back. If bishop takes d1, knight takes, bishop b3, and knight c7 really answers why we shouldn't go into this. Takes, takes, and this is clearly losing for black. So after e6, Magnus decided correctly, going queen d6, knight c3, and still we cannot take this pawn. This would be even worse now, due to white's development. And again, well, queen f5 takes, g6, queen h4 takes. You see the rook is coming into the game. Castling long is prevented for now. So taking this pawn is wrong. I hoped I made my point. So let's go back to this position. Castling long and a4. You know, in opposite side castling positions, the side first to leave or open the opposite castling position is probably going to win, and attack is the order of the day here. After such a move, you don't want your knight to be kicked with tempo, and then have a6, which would force probably a move like b6, and then you would permanently have light squared weakenings, weaknesses here. So you have to decide where to put your pawn, a6 or a5, and this is really important to be able to judge in which position which move is better. If a6, which wasn't Carlsen's choice, then a5, knight c4 takes, d5, cramping black with tempo, knight e5, g4, so this bishop has no time to relieve black's cramp, bishop g6, and now bishop f4. check, takes, queen c5, rook fc1. And this position is clearly better for white. So Carlsen decided correctly going into or moving the pawn to a5. Knight b5 is allowed because, well, a6 would have controlled b5. In this case it doesn't. Now the queen can take the pawn. Bishop f4, rook d7 covering c7, rook e1 with tempo, and rook c1. Bishop e4 with tempo, rook e3. So the queen now is free to move because the rook is watching over the knight. g4 with tempo, so it's really a thematic game of attacking on opposite sides here. Bishop h2. And in this position Magnus could have gone g4, and I'm not sure why he didn't. If takes, which would be clearly the only move here. If takes, takes, and now one idea would be to push the h-pawn to try to open white's king side, and if white were to block with g3, the h2 bishop would be practically out of the game, and black would play practically a piece up. So this would be one plan. Well, I don't know why Carlsen didn't go in for this. He went knight to c4. Well, this knight is the least active and the worst placed piece. Light pieces are more important to be placed early on onto active locations. After that, you care about your heavy pieces. This knight is not doing anything, so it makes sense to put it on c4. After takes, which was the game continuation, takes, and queen c2, attacking the pawn. Now Carlsen took a defender of the d-pawn, takes and takes. So we have, with bishop e3, e5, making use of the pin, rook d2, f5 check. Well, if we take this pawn, then it's clear that white loses a piece. So white wants to take the pawn back another way with queen f5. And now if king b8 would have been played, then queen takes g5, and Carlsen preferred, after check, queen to d7, and now the f-pawn was taken. And he preferred this because of the possibility to activate his last piece into the game. And queen takes g5 is not possible because of the active rook d5 pinning the bishop to the queen. So this is why in this position king b8 is bad, because now you have two isolated pawns. Okay, no, you can take this and take that, but now you have problems here. And after rook c8, you simply lose a pawn again. So I guess isolation is not avoidable. So let's go back to this position. that makes this decision way stronger in terms of pawns which you preserve, positional factors, and of course the possible pin if the queen takes this pawn. So this pawn is immune. Bishop g3, rook d4, covering the c pawn. Rook f1. Well, I guess white doesn't want to allow anything with check here, or else I have no further idea why this move was played. Well, rook f5 could have been a better try here, but that probably provokes g4, and if takes, well, takes. Queen f7. It's hard to say, but rook f1 doesn't look very appealing. g4 anyway, and this was taken. And rook f4, trying to exchange the pieces, because black is more active. Exchanging would favor white's defense. h5, and the rook was taken, and rook back to c1, c3, pawn took, bishop c5. So this pawn really is a shield now, and this rook has lost its activity. Queen g5, b6, and now black's king position really is rock solid here. c4, rook e4, queen g6, rook e2, king f1, queen to d2, and now black starts really to pressurize white. Magnus gave the pawn here with well, this pawn was taken with check, so king b1, and now Magnus saw this position in his mind's eye beforehand and said, after queen to e1, which is forced, that he has a big winning advantage here after queen e2 and queen takes. Well, I think white's pawns are too slow. They are too slow, and white's king is more vulnerable than black's king here. Bishop e5, bishop d4, takes, g4, queen d5, threatening mate. So queen e1 check, queen e8 check, king b7, queen a4, and now b5. The pawn was taken and the pawn was recaptured. Queen e1 takes, queen e5, attacking the b pawn, queen c4 check, king g2, king c6 check, king f1, b4, f4, b3, f5 was answered by king a6. Well, black is threatening to exchange the queens with check, and the point is, let's just look at that. Black is faster, that's the point. If white moves forward, well, I guess b2 would win here anyway, but well, if white would try to get out of the checking rank here, well, then again here check. So and then pressing that pawn. So it's already very difficult. Queen a1 check, king b6, queen h8 to get behind the king, queen c1 check, king g2, queen c2 check, king h1, b2, queen b8 check, king a5, queen a7, king b4, again check, check again, and now we can exchange queens. We will pawn, queen with check, and gather this pawn afterwards. So check again, check, check, and now if we don't have sensible checks, I mean, this would lose to b8 queen. So we pin this pawn, and now Magnus played c5. The queen is forced to stay on this diagonal to pin the pawn, but now after c4 check, c3, sorry, not c3, but check again, and c3 afterwards. We have two pawns here with the queen, and afterwards we have queen here. So in this position, after c5 by Magnus Carlsen, Yifan Hou resigned. So again, an excellent game where black increased his activity and really got a winning position out of nowhere, because there were no opening mistakes or blunders by white. It was rather that black had micro improvements move by move, and white couldn't deal with that. And this is really a masterly played game, because well, on weaker levels you win with blunders, or you lose with blunders, but this is how the master of the masters really outplays his strong opponents, which cannot compete with him. Please subscribe and comment and like if you did so, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back.